Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, and welcome to Work Trends with Megan M. Biro. Whether you're here to network, learn, or share, we want you to have fun. During this live broadcast and Twitter chat, we'll discuss the future of work with smart and entertaining guests who value today's business and its impact on the world of work for the future. Stay tuned, because we start in 3, 2, 1.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Work Trends today. We apologize. The technical snafus. But, hey, we're here. That's all I can say. Megan is entertaining and working at
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Brian's here.
Hey, Brian, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Tim?
Good. I am so sorry. I just want to thank everybody for coming to another informative Talent Culture Work Trends live podcast and Twitter chat, and I just want to apologize to you, Brian, as being our guest today, and everybody listening for being a start late here. We had some technical snafus, and those are all worked out because you and I are both here now, so everybody should be able to hear us now, and just so excited to have you here. So thank you so much for being patient with me and joining, and just want to thank our sponsors too, because we want to give a special thank you to all the friends and sponsors who make this possible each week, that we are able to make the show go live for Work Trends. So why are we here today? The fact that live video streaming is here to stay, and we are excited to explore this technology with somebody who really gets it. And I know this firsthand because I know Brian personally. Between Snapchat, Blab, Instagram, Periscope, Facebook Live, the list is growing. Live video has exploded onto the scene, and now everyone can emulate their favorite talk show host. And while video has been around for a while, and both Brian and I know this, we've witnessed YouTube sensations become legitimate celebrities. Live video streaming is a whole new breed of social media. So let's not waste any more time and dig right into the current trend and future promise of live stream video across all industries. But first, let me tell you a little bit about our very special guest today, Mr. Brian Fanzo. So Brian talks fast and tweets faster. He's a proud pager-wearing millennial. He is a keynote speaker and founder/CEO of iSocialFans. That's F-A-N-Z, and I with a lowercase I. So that's iSocialFans, LLC, a social strategy consulting agency. Brian is also one of the founders of Backlamp LLC, a strategic storytelling agency, the parent company of Summit Live, that hosts events to celebrate creators and storytellers globally. Brian's #ThinkLikeAFan philosophy has powered first-of-their-kind storytelling campaigns for many of the Fortune 50 enterprise companies leveraging Periscope, Snapchat, and Facebook Live under the username @iSocialFan. So if you're on Twitter, be sure and follow him there, and we're going to be live tweeting this right after we get done with the radio portion of the show. So Brian was recently awarded the top 25 social business leaders of 2014 by the Economist Intelligence Unit, and has been nominated for the first ever Shorty Awards Periscoper of the Year 2016. Congrats, Brian. In 2016, Brian will keynote in 9 countries at more than 40 events, highlighting his passion for change, collaboration, and community, a personal passion of mine. Dubbed the 3 C's of these elements are the foundation of his first book, A Millennial Mindset, due out in spring of 2017. So let's get this party started. So are you ready to get going, Brian?
I'm ready. I tell you what, I just tweeted it out, but, rolling with the punches is probably one of the number one characteristics of someone that's successful in live video, and a couple of technology snafus won't stop the conversation from happening. It's kind of maybe perfectly sets up the conversation today. So I'm excited to be on, Tim, with you, and I know we'll be missing Megan while she's holding down the fort there at SHRM. But I couldn't be more excited to have a conversation with you. And like you said, lots of fun things happening, and this will be a good time.
Well, and I think, that's a beautiful way to put it, Brian, because, I think with live streaming, we always, rely on the technology to be able to do it. And just like we had some snafus, it's not about, focusing on them. It's how we can incorporate it and make it fun as we go along for everybody, right? So let's get in with the first question for you. So tell us, between Snapchat, Blab, Instagram, Periscope, Facebook Live, you let me know if I'm missing any, which is your favorite and why?
So, this is a great question, just in the sense of, I actually had a recent blog that, nobody really cares about the technology. They care about the experience and the value that's provided using the technology. But I recently kind of fallen in love with Snapchat in the sense of it wasn't an app that I thought was any good. Actually, in the fall of 2014, I called it the dumbest app that I had ever used. So in 2016, I've really found amazing value in really connecting, I like to say, digital eyeballs to digital eyeballs with my community, because, I leverage Periscope and Facebook Live, and I have a weekly Blab show that, I run every Thursday at noon where we talk about cloud computing. I recently started an Instagram series where I do Instagram video tips. But really, for me, Snapchat allows my audience to actually chat with me on a one-to-one basis, video to video. So rather than me always being the one on video broadcasting the conversation one direction, and people can have those conversations via the chat that's on the video and those things, Snapchat has really allowed, kind of the ability to put a face on my community and have these personalized conversations. So surprisingly enough, I wouldn't have said, if you would have asked me 6 months ago, I would have said there's no way Snapchat would have been in the top 5, but I think Snapchat's my current favorite one for me personally, but for brands and those that I'm working with, most of the work I'm doing around is really Facebook Live and Periscope.
Well, I love that, and there's a couple things in there, Brian, that I'm like hearing from you. It's the one-on-one, and I love what Snapchat has done with their recent release about allowing video conversations back and forth in the messaging part to really allow that one-on-one conversation. And the other thing that I really took from this is, do not be afraid to change your mind on your opinion on things, right?
Yes. Actually, I'm actually pretty good at admitting that I'm pretty wrong with a lot of my, I'm the one that likes to jump on new technology and kick the tires and test it out. But I'm also the first one to admit that when I see other people doing great things on a platform, I quickly, and actually I spent 6 months on Snapchat after I called it a dumb app, just watching and consuming content, not actually posting a single snap, which for people that know me, that's very hard for me to hold back. But I wanted to learn why other people found it so valuable and what I was missing. And after 6 months of really studying it, I realized that it's an amazing storytelling platform. So I quickly had to, issue and apologize and admit that I kind of miscalculated it. And, I have no problem making predictions as well as coming back and saying I was wrong. So that's for sure.
Oh, nice. So what do you think, Brian, has been the driving force behind this live video craze?
I think it's actually a culture thing. I think video, live streaming, I remember when Steve Jobs announced the very first iPhone, and I was watching on someone's hat camera that was through Justin.tv, and that was live streaming 9 years ago, and the guy was sitting in the front row, and it was very grainy and really bad content. So live streaming itself isn't new, but I think if you look at it this way, we no longer, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, what's my favorite brand doing on social media? And nobody looks at a brand or a company as caring about the logo. We don't care, if it's IBM, it's not the blue logo that we have an affinity for. We actually care about the people behind the brand, because we've always known that a brand is great because it has great employees. The key now is, how do we highlight that great employees, and how do we tell those stories in an authentic way? And for the longest time, every single company, every person that's listening to this show, I can guarantee that your company somewhere on the website says that we have a trusting culture and we are authentic and you should trust us. But we've always redirected them to a blog post or an overproduced, polished video that is someone sitting behind a green screen that is, maybe even an actor talking about how great the company is. And I believe with the even kind of the emergence of reality TV and the emergence of people and brands wanting to know who's behind the brand and that they're actually human, I think it's kind of turned this craze into this idea that says, how can we talk with our community and give them insights and experiences that they can't get anywhere else, where we don't have to tell them that we're authentic. We don't have to tell them to trust us. We can actually demonstrate that. And I believe that's where video has come to. And, a recent, study from Cisco came out that by 2020, 81% of all of the internet traffic will be video. And so it's not something that that's going to go away. It's only going to grow. And I truly do believe, even more so than the technology's kind of always been there. And yes, the front-facing camera is now a little bit better, to where the video quality has increased. The audio is now a little bit better. But I would actually say it's the culture in a whole is probably what I believe is driving the biggest adoption of this video craze.
Oh, you bring me back to those early days of Justin TV. I remember participating in some of those.
Yes.
And I also remember, I think the first time I ever really noticed how video was going to overtake things, I saw a mom at a Panera Bread in downtown Chicago overlooking the river talking with her baby daughter on her lunch break from work using FaceTime. And I'm like, wow, if this is how we're connecting with our kids now, imagine how we're going to be connecting with others soon using video. So
that's the truth.
So tell me, Brian, in the HR world, who were the early adopters of live video?
It's an interesting space because, surprisingly enough, I've been doing a lot of work with enterprise-sized brands, and I worked in the enterprise for a long time before kind of going on my own and doing the startup thing that I'm doing now with some small businesses. But the enterprises, although it seems like it takes a long time for big brands to make big decisions and big pivots, I've also noticed that a lot of brands want to think like a startup, and they want to embrace kind of like this startup mentality. And so I've been seeing brands, Dell without question is one of my favorites, where Dell has their I work at Dell kind of philosophy and mentality, and they started sharing pictures and Instagram of like what was going on in that company, and then they were one of the ones that jumped on live video and said, okay, I'm going to show you what it's about. And then you had some of the more traditional, I would say, B2C brands that were doing great things like the Red Bull and UFC. Probably UFC is one of my favorite brands out there. That they really just get it. They give their audience access to what Dana White's doing before the big fight, and then they give the access to their Periscope account to the person that's doing the weigh-ins before a big fight. And then you have ones like IBM, and I've done a lot of work with IBM, and IBM did a startup event at South by Southwest, and all of the companies that won the startup event got to sit with the mayor of Austin, as part of like the perk. And what they did was they periscoped that conversation, and it wasn't about like, hey, we're IBM and this is what we're doing. It's, hey, look at these startups and the conversations they're able to have with the mayor of Austin. And it was really cool because I felt like I was sitting at the same table as these other startups. And then you have some other brands that are doing it really well now as well. I mean, surprisingly enough, the White House, if you're not following the White House on Facebook Live, they went live about an hour ago, and they do almost every other day they do a Facebook Live, and they're giving us access to behind the scenes at the White House that I could have never guessed that the White House would be that open and that embracing of live video, but they're doing it really well. So there's some great companies. I think we're still extremely early on, so if listeners are listening to this and being like, I don't know where this is going, and I'm still not sure, what brands, we're only 16 months into this craze, and I still think we're figuring out the technology and the best way to do it. But, I don't believe there's a right answer, but I also don't think it's, by any stretch of the imagination, it's not too late to get into the game.
Well, I think that's, you bring up an interesting point that sometimes, when it is, kind of the Wild West, so to speak, there is no right or wrong, right? It's just about getting out and trying and seeing what works.
That's the truth.
So do you think, is there anybody that you're following since it is, SHRM Week in D.C., is there anybody that you're paying attention to when it comes to live stream video that's at SHRM this week?
So you know what? There's a couple interesting companies. Cisco. If you look at Cisco, they have. If you follow on Snapchat, it's called We Are Cisco. So it's WEARE and then Cisco, SCO. They have a Snapchat account, and I tell you what, they are amazing. They did they did the Build the House for humanitarian aid, and they gave the Snapchat account to their employees that are there, hammering nails and doing some things. And then each day they give someone else takes over their Snapchat account, and really it puts a face on a big brand like Cisco like no one else before. And I know Cisco's there at SHRM. There's some representation there. So they were probably the first one that jumped out at me. I haven't seen them doing as much live video, but their Snapchat is what I love. It's employee advocacy, it's storytelling, and it's putting a human face on a giant brand like Cisco.
Nice. And so just how have you applied live video recently in your career that you're excited about?
For me, my philosophy is think like a fan, and it kind of worked out being my last name being Fanzo, so that worked out really well. But people kept asking me like, Brian, why are you being what's so successful with the way that you're using live streaming, and why are you getting brands? And what I came down to is this think like a fan idea is that we all have fans. We all have people that like are supportive of us and advocates, and it might be one person, or maybe you're a Gary Vaynerchuk and you have millions of people. But ultimately, what I try to do is I give people access to things that they would not get elsewhere, and that if I was a fan, like I think of what brands that I'm a fan of. Like I'm a big Converse shoe guy, and as a fan of Converse, like what would I love to see? Like I would love to be able to interview and have a Q&A session with the person that designed the new shoe, and I would love to have a tour of their shoe factory and get access that you had never had before. So for me, I'm doing a lot of speaking, a lot of events around the world. I'm traveling, and really what I try to do on Snapchat and on live video is I like to bring the people with me, but also ask them questions, bring their conversations, to these events. So oftentimes I will tell people, I will get on before I do a keynote and say, what things would you love me to cover if you were here at this event? And then I actually incorporate that in what I'm delivering, and hopefully giving my fans not only additional access to something that's great, but bringing them. I think of it as participatory content. It's not just what Brian Fanzo wants to share; it's what I'm sharing, and then what I'm learning and adapting when the audience that's live viewing. And it's been amazing. I can tell you, I've received probably I would say right now 6 paid speaking opportunities all through Snapchat. The entire the lead generation for me was all done through Snapchat. And interesting enough, people will say, well, Brian, my audience isn't on Snapchat. I'm not targeting the millennials or the Gen Z. Well, the people that actually hired me were not millennials or Gen Z. What happened was an employee of a company got to know me via Snapchat, and they went into their boss and said, hey, boss, are you aware of Brian Fanzo? You should follow him. Go look at his YouTube channel. I think he'd be a great speaker at our events. They then reached out back at me on Snapchat and said, hey, Brian, someone's going to reach out to you to have you come speak in our event. And that all happened through Snapchat. And so I think it's not always about your target audience being on a platform, but think about who influences the influencer. Oftentimes those people are already on the platform, and they can give you, a call to action and a return on investment just as well as the actual influencer being on the platform.
Well, perfect. And hey, I know our time on Blog Talk Radio is going to be ending, but we can keep recording if you're good for tweeting and talking, which I know you are, Brian. But I just want to thank everybody and remind them to go over on Twitter to #WorkTrends and jump in the conversation there if you're not there already, and look forward to next week's show. But Brian, I just have 2 other questions. If you want to tweet and talk at the same time, let's go for it, and we'll give people in the recording an added bonus.
Sounds great.
All right. So just 2 more questions I have for you. One is, what advice would you give anyone that's hesitant to try live video? What advice would you give them?
So my first advice is press the button, try it out. And for a lot of people, the worry is because it's live, they believe that there's so much risk. But I actually challenge you and say, just because it's live doesn't mean you don't need a strategy, doesn't mean you can't be consistent, and it doesn't mean you can't put swim lanes or policies in place to make it easy to actually implement. But I will. The other element of that is don't be afraid to say what, in my opinion, is the most powerful phrase in live video, and the phrase is simply saying, "I don't know." Because people are really worried about, what if they ask me a question, Brian, that I don't know? Or what if they ask me a question about something I can't talk about? And in this world we live in today, the idea of saying I don't know, or sorry, that's not something I can talk about, or let me go find some more information and bring you to that at a later time, people are not turned off by that. Oftentimes, by saying I don't know, it actually adds validity to what you're talking about that you actually do know. And so I would say for those that are worried about it, understand you can have a strategy, understand you can be consistent, but the biggest two pieces are don't be afraid to say I don't know, and just press the button, and I can promise you you'll get over that fear fairly easily.
I love that advice. I remember that when I published my first blog post and got that first blog up. I remember the feeling and the how scared I was to do that, and somebody just told me, just do it, just hit that button, So I love that piece of advice. And just to put everybody at ease here and have a little laugh for our last question, Brian, can you share like one of your most embarrassing moments while you were live on camera? Just to let everybody know that it's okay to have mistakes.
I have no problem with that. For me, it's one of those funny ones where I do a lot of walking around and a lot of things that as I'm kind of going throughout the day and doing my keynotes and things. And one of the most embarrassing ones was actually I was doing an open Q&A and my audio was messed up and I had my headphones were actually plugged into I have two devices and were plugged into the wrong device. And I'm like live streaming, and I'm talking about the importance of live streaming and not being afraid sometimes to fail. And the whole time everybody's comments kept saying, Brian, your audio is not working. And I'm like, well, you guys must not have your headphones turned on because my headphones are in my ears. And I'm like arguing with the audience. And all of a sudden I looked down and said, oh no, my headphones aren't plugged into the right phone. and so I had to end up going on stage and I used it as my on stage piece and said, sometimes the audio won't work because you don't have it plugged in the right place. And funny enough is it probably turned into one of my best Q&As with the audience because then they started asking me things about, should we use headphones and what kind of technology should I use and should I have other tools and gadgets? And because of that, it ended up being a very humanized, honest conversation, and it simply was because I was plugged into the wrong piece.
I love that. I love it. So don't be afraid to get embarrassed a little bit. Mistakes are going to happen, and that's all right. So, hey, Brian, thank you for staying on a little bit longer on the radio show. I don't think we were broadcasting live, but it will be recorded, and we'll give that as an added bonus to people. So just in closing, let people know how they can get in touch with you and the best way to find you.
For me, everywhere and everything is iSocialFans. I preach consistency is a great way to stand out from the noise. So it's iSocialFans.com. It's iSocialFans on all of the channels, from Snapchat to Periscope to Facebook Live. Just look for me at iSocialFans on those channels. And, of course, the number one place to get a hold of me is Twitter. Twitter is my favorite platform for conversation. So I know we're doing the Twitter chat right now as we're going. So if you need to reach out or have a question or comment or want me to elaborate or give some links for some of the things I talk about, feel free to tweet at me at iSocialFans.
All right. Thank you so much, Brian. Really appreciate it, and great talking with you on Work Trends today.
Cheers, Tim. Have a great one.
We'll see you on Twitter.
All right. Sounds good. Bye.